top of a hill, so we've been okay. But I know some of the villages and the towns around us have been really badly hit. So
Really?
yeah, Horncastle.
Okay.
Hello,
Ah,
John.
Hello, everyone.
hello.
I'm
Hello.
just gonna. Oh, that's better. So, hi, Tony.
Hi.
Hi, Keith. Hi, Willie.
Hello.
We're being live. We're on live. So, Tony, do you want to tell a story?
If you've got a space, John, yeah.
Always got a space. Always got a space. And Keith, I don't need to ask. Of course, you want to tell a story.
You know.
So, I'll announce all the business. Mike will be a bit late in today.
Right.
And I'm just walking towards my house. So hopefully this will all work.
Right.
And I think I'm co-host, so that'll work. I haven't seen my house for 3 weeks. So,
You're back in the UK then, John. You're back in the UK now, John.
Yeah. I'm back in Gloucester.
Right.
And so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, and assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And it is what is it? It's Sunday. And it's Worldwide Story Round. So we've got and Donald, you'll be third. So it's going Tony, Keith, and Donald. So without further ado, let's have the first story. How are we doing? Let's have the first story. Over to you, Tony.
All right. Well, I'll start off.
Let's get it going.
Yeah. Well, I'll start off very, very seasonally, and this is a story I love to tell around this time of year. Now, here in the northwest of England, autumn has arrived, and has done, I guess, for many of you as well. And the days are getting shorter, the nights are getting chillier. All the leaves are turning from russet to red to yellows. Beautiful, beautiful time of the year. And the leaves slowly dropping to the ground. Now, the scientists, the plant biologists will tell you that this is change of temperature, chemical reactions happening in the leaves. Believe that if you will, but I too have an explanation as to why the leaves drop at this time of year. But before I do, we must go back many years ago, when the first spring came to the greenwood, and the leaves were that fresh, vibrant green, heralding the start of the new year, new life, bringing joy to our hearts. And on the woodland floor, the young bunnies were hopping around amongst the primrose, celandine, wooden anemone. Up in the trees, the birds were building their nest, feeding their... Can you hear my phone? I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay. We're live. We can handle these things.
It is. No one ever calls me. I don't have any friends, but tonight I do. Anyway, up in the tree.
It's what storytelling does.
I know. So annoying. Anyway, up in the trees, the birds were building their nests, feeding their ever hungry young. Squirrels were first taking their first tentative steps along the branches. Now, all was well with the world. Summer came, summer went, and autumn arrived. And the days grew shorter, the leaves began to change colour, and the nights grew cold. So cold that the mammals had to huddle together to keep themselves warm. The rabbit, the fox, the badger, the bear. Even Rabbit was having to huddle up next to Fox. Well, that wasn't right, was it? Something was wrong. So Badger decided he was going off to see Mother Nature. See if she could do something to help. For after all, it was her who created them all. So off Badger went to see Mother Nature. Well, Mother Nature was aghast when she saw Badger. She put her hand over her eyes and she peeked through. for there in front of her was a naked badger, not a stitch on him. "Oh no," she said. "Oh, I am so sorry. All this creating, oh, it's just far too much, just for one person." And she went off into her back room and came back with a beautiful grey fur coat and a black and white striped hat for Badger. Well, off Badger went back to see the other animals. Well, they didn't recognise him. It's me, said Badger, it's me. Well, it wasn't long then before all the other mammals were off to see Mother Nature. Fox got himself a beautiful rust-coloured coat, a bushy tail. Little dormouse, he had a little bushy tail too, and a beautiful honey-coloured fur coat. Well, all was well. Well, not quite, because up in the trees, the birds looked down upon this, and they too were cold. And, well, you know what I'm going to say now. They hadn't got any feathers. Now, I don't know whether you've ever seen a naked pigeon. Oh, it's not a pretty sight. So off went the birds to see Mother Nature. Oh, they had all their feathers. The robin had beautiful red breast, the blue tit, blue back, nice yellow breast. Blackbird, I was quite happy to just have black feathers. They too were happy. Now, down on the woodland floor were all the mini beasts. You know, the centipedes, woodlice, spiders and the like. Well, they wanted a cut of the action too, and they started talking and thinking, oh, well, I'm sure we must have something. I'm sure Mother Nature's missed something with us. We're going to get cold this winter if we don't do something about it. So Grandma Spider went off to see Mother Nature. And she stared at Mother Nature with one of her many eyes. "Oh, no, said Mother Nature. "No, I admit, I got one or two things wrong. No. You're fine. You don't need anything to keep you. You are cold-blooded creatures. You don't need anything." But Spider wasn't moving. She stood there intimidating Mother Nature. So Mother Nature, being quite the ingenious person she is, thought, I must think of something to placate these mini beasts. So she thought a moment or two, and she said, "Right, Grandma Spider, go back and tell all those other mini beasts. Go and tell them to go and stand underneath the trees and just wait." Well, it wasn't long before, first of all, one little leaf fell. Then a second one fell, and soon all the leaves had left the trees, leaving the bare branches, which we now see in the wintertime. Now, if you yourselves go poking around amongst the wood, amongst those leaves, underneath the trees, there you will find all those little mini beasts thinking that they are keeping themselves warm and snuggly through those winter months. The end.
Amazing.
Amazing. Did you not know that, John? Did you not know that was why the
I
leaves?
don't know much at all. I've been hiding under the leaves all my life. I really, even when spring comes, I just hide underneath the mulch.
Yeah.
So it's kept me pretty ignorant. So
Is that why you smell like that?
that's just when you come past my tent at Glastonbury. Right, leave it out, Donald. Right, I'm trying to do 200 things simultaneously here. I've just walked through the door. I haven't been in my house for 3.5 weeks. It does smell a bit musty. So I'm putting on heaters, looking at my post, seeing who I owe money to.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully getting a new driving license. That'd be good, so I can get legal again. So, but enough of me. I had a marvelous time in Romania. Did a few festivals. Georgiana sends her best to everyone, and I saw Juliana as well over there. So that was nice. But right now we're going to Lincolnshire because there's a guy who kept saying that people kept asking me if I was in at the gathering, and people kept asking him if he was me, and we said no. You've got to look at the difference in hats. And so welcome, Keith. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yes, yes. I do wear a hat a lot of the time, but
yeah, you had a sort of. It was slightly different. We had different design hats.
That's right. Yeah, because mine's an Australian Nakubra hat that I often wear.
It's a very nice hat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we'd swapped hats during the gathering, it would have caused even. We should have
confused
thought of that.
everybody.
We could have had mass confusion. But right now, unconfuse us with a story. I hope it is as educational as Tony's, because I've forgotten everything I ever knew, and I'm trying to re-educate myself.
Okay.
So,
well,
over to you, Keith. Right.
This is a story I've been telling through the summer, and so as against Tony sort of made it so more seasonal, being autumn, but this is actually a summer story. And it's one of my favourite stories. It's one that goes down really well with some of the schools that I go into. So, well, it was summertime, and the schools had broken up for the summer holidays. Well, all the children were there as they were gathered around in John's cottage. He was sitting on the porch, and all his friends were sitting around on the fence and on the decking and on the lawn, and all his friends were saying, "There's nothing to do. It's boring. There's nothing to do." Now, in the summertime, all his friends often would play cricket, but John didn't like playing cricket because he was always first out. Didn't play hide and seek because he was always the first to be found. He didn't like to play tag either because he was always it. And so John, he decided to run away from home. And he ran down the lane and onto a field, and he sat down under a tree. And it was hot, it was warm, and he was just lying there next to the trunk of the tree. And he nodded off. And out from the grass came a snail with a silver shell. And it crawled across the grass and up his arm and onto his shoulder and beside his neck. And he whispered in John's ear, saying, "John, I know that you are a good boy and you don't like cricket and tag and hide and seek, but I will tell you 100 stories that you can tell to your friends." Buzz, 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 once there was, and John had been asleep and he woke up. And he heard a voice. "John, John, it's tea time." And so John, he forgot about all running away, and he went back to his cottage and he had his tea with his mum and dad. And then in the evening, he was sitting on the porch, and all his friends were sitting round on the decking, on the lawn, and on the railings. And of course they were saying, "There's nothing to do. It's boring. There's nothing to do." But John said, I could tell you some stories." "You tell us some stories? Go on then, John, tell us a story." And John told a story. And all his friends said, "Oh, that was cool. You got another story, John?" And he told another story. And all evening he told them stories, and all the parents of the children, his friends, were looking for them. And they came looking for their children, and they sat around and listened to John's stories until it got late and they all had to go home. And then the next day, they're all gathered around again, and John told them stories, one after another, day after day, until one day he was telling a story, and a little girl put her hand up and said, "John, we've heard that story before. Have you got any more stories?" And John said, "What? No, I've told you all the stories that I know." And all the children said, "John is boring, John is boring." And so he decided to run off and try and find the snail with the silver shell to get some more stories. And he ran down the lane and into the field, and again he sat down beside the tree, rested beside the tree trunk. And he looked down and he saw this sort of round stone. He thought, "I wonder if the snail with silver shell is underneath that stone." And he looked up the stone, and there under the stone there was a little green man. "What are you doing? What are you doing? Can't you see I'm busy? I'm teaching the moles how to dig holes and to play magic tricks." "Do you know where I can find the snail with the silver shell?" said John. Oh, yeah, yes, over there somewhere, but you'll never find him. And shut the door." And so John, he replaced the stone. He went walking a bit further. And as he walked along, he came to a big field full of giant mushrooms. And beside the field was an old man with a grey beard, dressed in Levi's, sitting on a log. And John said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where I can find the snail with silver shell?" "The snail with silver shell? I know him. He told me 100 stories. But I'd nobody to listen to my stories. And they all changed into these giant mushrooms." "Well, do you know where I can find the snail with silver shell?" "Who? He's over there somewhere, but you'll never find him. Go on, go." And so John said, "Well, thank you very much, sir," and he walked on. And he walked and he came through a forest. In the middle of the forest, there was a big tree, and he looked under the tree, and there was a bear climbing up the tree. Mr. Bear, do you know where I can find the snail with the silver shell?" "Don't you disturb me. Can't you see I'm busy? I'm climbing up this tree to get the moon out of the skies because it's disturbing my sleep." "But do you know where I can find the snail with silver shell?" said John. "Oh, yeah, well, he'll be over there somewhere. If you walk there, but you'll never find him. Now, don't disturb me, I'm busy." And so John, he walked and walked and walked on. And he came to a beach. And the tide was just, the waves were just lapping on the beach. And there, not far from the edge of the beach, was a big whale in the water. And sitting on the top of the whale were 12 mermaids. Some were blonde, some were brunette, and some were redheads. And they were plaiting each other's hair. And John said, "Excuse me, do you know where I can find the snail with silver shell?" They said, "Yeah, well, he's over there somewhere. You have to go there, but you'll have to be very kind. You'll have to be very kind if you want to find him." And so what happened was that the mermaids, they dived into the water, and the whale went up out of the water and splashed down, and there's a big wave came out from the sea and just wet John all over. He's totally wet. But he dried himself off, and he walked and walked and walked and walked until he came to a big field full of long grass. And over in the corner, he saw this round, fluffy ball. He went over to, and it turned out to be a little baby bunny rabbit. Said the bunny rabbit, I've lost my way. I can't find my mummy. I don't know where she is. And John said, well, where does your mummy live? Where does she? Oh, she lives in a field that's full of giant mushrooms. I can't get my way back. Can't find it. I think I can help, says John. And so he picked up the little bunny rabbit. And he went back down by the side of the beach, and there the mermaids were on the top of the whale, and they waved and smiled, and through the forest, and the bear was still climbing up the tree trying to get the moon out of the sky if it disturbed his sleep. And he walked a bit further, and he came to the big field full of giant mushrooms, and over the corner there was a rabbit, a grown-up rabbit. And he took the little baby rabbit over to the little rabbit and said, excuse me, missus, is this your baby? Oh, it's my baby. Oh, thank you very much for rescuing. Thank you for bringing him back. Oh, thank you so much. Oh. And John said, well, do you know where I can find the snail, the silver shell? Yes, I know, she said. If you go down the lane there, and eventually you'll come to a big rock face, big cliff face. And in front of it, there's a log. Jump over the log, turn around 3 times to the left and 3 times to the right, and say, bull, bull, bull. Once there was, and out of the rock face, a door will open. And you go in there and you'll find the snail, the silver shell. But be very careful, because there's a fire-breathing dragon that's also in that cave. And the rabbit said, would you like some salad? But John had gone. And he walked down the lane, and there he saw this big rock face, this cliff. He jumped over the log and he turned 3 times to the left, 3 times to the right, and said, bull, bull, bull. Once there was, and the door in the rock face opened up. And he went carefully through the rock, through in the cave, not to disturb the fire-breathing dragon, but out from the side became the dragon, ready to burn him up with the smell of the fire and the flashing of light from his nostrils. And John said, will you let me by? Because I want to find the snail, the silver shell. I will not let you by. Well, if I told you 25 stories, said John, would you still eat me? Yes. 50 stories? 75 stories? Well, if I told you 100 stories, would you let me by? Yeah, okay. And so John told the fire-breathing dragon 100 stories. And the dragon let him by. And he walked and walked and walked, and he came a bit further and down into the cave. And there he found the snail, the silver shell. And John said, oh, thank you for so much for telling me those stories. My friends really loved them. They were great. That was brilliant. Have you got any more stories? But the snail said, I haven't got any more stories. I haven't got any more. I've told you all I know. You'll have to make them up for yourself. And John said, make up my own stories? And then he heard something. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Once there was. And he'd been asleep beside the tree, and he hadn't been anywhere. John, it's tea time. And so John, he came back, and he had his tea with his mum and his dad, and sat on the porch after the tea, and he was sitting on the porch. And all his friends were sitting around. Some were on the lawn, some were on the railing, some were on the decking. And of course they were saying, there's nothing to do. It's boring. There's nothing to do. And John said, and he heard a sound. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Once there was. And John told them a story about the little green man that lived under a stone slab that was teaching the moles how to dig holes and do magic tricks. And then he told the story about a field full of big mushrooms and an old man sitting on the side dressed in Levi's. Then he told the story about the bear that was climbing up the tree that was getting the moon out of the sky because it's disturbing his sleep. Then he told the story about the 12 mermaids that were riding on the top of a whale. And then he told the story about the little bunny rabbit that was reunited with his mother. Then he told the story about the fire-breathing dragon in the cave. And then he told the story about the snail with a silver shell.
Hey, everyone.
Very good.
Excellent.
Very good.
Right. Love that. Love that. And I next time I run out of stories, I'm going to look for a snail with a silver shell, which happens regularly. Not the snail with the silver shell, but running out of stories.
Yeah.
Donald, we're going up Scotland then, and I see Despina has joined us.
Oh, yeah.
Despina, who I'm not sure. Are you still in Ireland?
Hello.
You're back in Greece. Okay. You just didn't want the rain, did you? We're looking at a beautiful green wall at the moment, which we have to imagine the fantastic face of Despina on because she's eating. I can see she's eating, and she didn't want us to see she was eating. So you are forgiven. So you got a Donald length story to finish your meal, and then it's you. So Donald, drag it out with you so she doesn't get indigestion.
Okay. Well, she will get indigestion after hearing me. So
yeah.
But,
all right. Now, how is it up there? I mean, did you
well, it's actually very
well, you're
nice
on the other
today.
side of the country, aren't you?
Yes, but I'm just back from a week in Venice, and you know, we were quite worried because we had to land at Edinburgh Airport, and of course that's on the east side of Scotland. Yeah. It was the east side of Scotland. It was getting all the wind and the rain and but it was all over by the time
you landed. Well,
you know,
I had a
landed,
word. I had a word on your behalf with the weatherman and said, "Could you sort? Donald's on his way home. Could you arrange that Edinburgh Airport is open and there's no weather at the time of arrival?"
There was absolutely no weather whatsoever, none at all.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad to see that everyone followed their instructions. Anyway, Donald, have you got a tale for us?
Yes, I have got a tale.
Excellent.
And, well, Tony told an autumn tale, and Keith told a summer tale. I'm going to tell a tale that happened in winter, and it's a true-ish story. It's a family story, and because I'd been in Venice, of course, you've got all the canals, lots and lots of canals. And my father grew up next to a canal, the Forth and Clyde Canal in Glasgow. And where their house was, their flat, he lived with my grandmother and his brother and his 3 sisters. But my father, he was the oldest, so he moved away, got married. And so it was my Uncle Joe and my 3 aunts, my Aunt Maisie, my Aunt Esther, and my Aunt Kathy. Well, their windows, their kitchen window overlooked the Forth and Clyde Canal. And there was a Forth and Clyde Canal, and then there was a basin, a timber basin, where they would float logs to weather them before they used them in building. And beyond that, the kitchen window looked right into a football park, and it was the home of Partick Thistle Football Club, who just happened to be my favourite team. And you know, if you want to know how good Partick Thistle Football Club are, they say that if your window did look in to the football ground and you could see Partick Thistle playing, then you would get a reduction in your rent as compensation. That's how good they are. So anyway, my Uncle Joe was standing one Saturday morning, standing at the kitchen sink, looking out the window, and he was shaving. Now, he would have shaved in the bathroom, but it was Saturday morning, and he had 3 sisters. And what chance, if you've got 3 sisters on a Saturday morning, what chance of you getting into the bathroom? So anyway, he's standing shaving, and he's looking out the window, and he looked over the canal onto the timber basin, the timber basin. And as it was winter, it gets very cold up here in Scotland, and the timber basin had iced over. And there was 2 wee boys playing on the ice, and they were running and they were sliding, and they'd stones, and they were sliding them along the ice to see how far they could get them, and they were having a great time. And Uncle Joe, he watched the boys as they shaved, and he would look down now and again to dip his razor into the water and shave some more, and he would look up and he would think back to when he was a kid, and him and his friends would do that. But of course, he had to go away further down the canal to do it, because if my granny caught him playing on the ice, well, he was in trouble. Anyway, Joe's watching the boys shaving away, and here he looks up, and the boys aren't there anymore. What he sees is a hole in the ice and 2 heads bobbing up and down. Well, Joe dropped his razor into the sink, ran out the front door, and he had to go down 3 flights of stairs right along the road. He couldn't just go down through the back to the canal, because he would have to cross the ice on the canal, and he would have fallen in maybe. So he ran out, down the street, right along the street, down past the old ironworks, across the wooden bridge, onto the canal bank, and ran along until he got to the timber basin. Well, by now, one of the boys had managed to get to swim across, to dog paddle across to the side, and Joe managed to reach down and pull him out, and he sat him on the bank. And the boy said, my pal, my friend's still in there. And the boy had gone under the water, under the ice. Joe, dressed only in his trousers and just a little vest, a little singlet, kicked off his shoes and got into the water. He crawled across the ice, which was creaking and cracking, until he got to the hole in the ice. And then the ice gave way and he fell in. Well, Joe caught his breath at the top, and then he dived down and he searched, and it was pitch black under the ice. The water was murky, because in these days the canal was still used, and there was forever boats going up, and not when it was icy, of course, but there'd be boats going up and down, and the place got dirty, and there was factories on either side, and they would, who knows what would flow into that canal, what chemicals and other things would flow into the canal. So the water was really dirty, but Joe didn't care. He went down, felt around for the boy, couldn't find him. He couldn't find him at all. And he came back up for air and back down again. Oh, felt around, and he couldn't find the boy at all. He came back up for air once more. Oh, down again, and he tried the other side, and eventually he found the boy, and the boy had been caught up in some weeds and some old wheelbarrows and whatever had been thrown into the canal by people. He managed to get the boy, and he pulled the boy to the surface. Well, by the time he'd done this, crowd had gathered, and someone in the crowd ran up to the local shop, up the hill, over the wooden bridge and up the hill. Ran up to the local shop because if this was back in the early 1950s, and they were all pretty poor, and nobody in the street had a phone except Mrs. Auld. Mrs. Auld owned the local newsagents and grocers, and she had a phone in the shop. Ran up there and phoned the police and the ambulance. By the time they'd done that, Joe had got the boy from under the water and dragged him out. Joe was exhausted. And a crowd gathered round the boy, and somebody started to help him to try and get his breath back. And the boy was frozen, but eventually just a little bit of water spurted out of his mouth, and he started to breathe. And by this time, Joe was at the back of the crowd. And Joe, he was a very modest man. He didn't want any attention. He just turned and he went away back home. By that time, his three sisters had finished putting on their, what he would call their war paint, to go out into town for the Saturday. And he got into a nice warm bath. And he got dressed. And he went out and he met his girlfriend. And they had a lovely afternoon, lovely evening. The next morning was a knock on the door. And my granny went and opened the door. And there was a woman standing there. And my granny said, "Can I help you?" She said, "Is your Joe in? Is Joseph in?" And my granny said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, I'm Mrs. McCann, and I heard that your Joe pulled my William out of the canal yesterday, and I just want to speak to him." And my granny said, "Oh, you better come in." And there was Uncle Joe sitting in the chair next to the fire, reading his Sunday paper, having had his hearty Scottish fry-up breakfast. No deep fried Mars bars included, I might add. Lovely breakfast, reading his paper. And my granny brought Mrs. McCann in to the living room, and she said, "Joe, yeah, so this is Mrs. McCann. She wants to speak to you." And he went, "Oh yeah. Well, what is it?" And she said, "Joe, the neighbours were telling me that you pulled my son out of the canal yesterday and saved his life." And Joe said, "Oh, I don't know if I saved it. It was a bit wet and a bit cold, but I don't." And she said, no, the people in the ambulance said you did save his life." And he said, well, if that's, if you've got to do these things, if you've got to do these things. And she said, "I heard you had to dive down 3 times before you found them." And Joe said, "Oh, was it 3? Okay, I wasn't counting. No, that wasn't counting. 3 times. Oh, well, okay then, okay." And Mrs. McCann said, "Joe, can I ask you something?" And he went, "Yes, of course you can ask me anything you want." And she said, "You didn't see his other welly, did you?" Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Donald.
Excellent,
Yeah.
Donald.
It is almost a true story. He did pull 2 boys out of the canal.
Yeah, wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
He did pull 2 boys.
Donald, before you go, you've got a thing coming up with Michael Currens, haven't you, on
on the
a
island of
benefit gig for Marrakesh?
Yes.
I mean, it's a live one, but if anyone happens to be up in Scotland or wants to walk up the A1 from London or hitchhike, as I used to, and then across to, where is it, near Glasgow?
It's on the Isle of Bute in the Firth of Clyde. It's about 40 minutes outside Glasgow. You've got to get a train, then you've got to get a boat.
Yeah,
It's-
yeah.
it's-
So if anyone's got a rowing boat and wants to float, row from Cornwall round Wales, up past Liverpool and into Clyde, what date is it?
Yes,
Okay, look on the World Story
the
Cafe on my
19th.
Facebook.
I think
18th.
it's Saturday, the 19th of
Saturday the
November.
19th. Yeah,
Yeah.
Saturday the 19th of
Round about there.
November, something around there.
We'll
But anyway,
soon let
there'll
you
be
know.
loads of publicity. There already is. I put something up, which is why I know it exists. But it'd be worth a walk if you happen to be in northern climes. But
It's a
meanwhile,
beautiful island.
let us go to southern climes or further south, sort of bit nearer the equator, south of Europe anyway, southern climes in Europe. Well, not ancient Greece, very modern Greece, actually, very now Greece, very contemporary Greece, the most contemporary of Grecians. Despina. Well, did you have a fine time and get a word in edgeways?
Oh, did I, John? I had a marvelous time. I really liked the festival. I liked the people I met. I met some of the people I already know through Zoom and love in person. Some of them for the first time, some of them for the second time after Marrakesh. So that was brilliant. And I also met new people, of course, which is always lovely to meet more of our tribe. Well,
Yeah, so what were you doing in Northern Ireland?
I got an invitation from our lovely Liz, our beloved Liz Beer, because she told me she had offered an open invitation ever since we met in Marrakesh, and I think I let her know that I was going to March Wenlock, and she says, "Why don't you come to the Glen Festival after that? It's right afterwards." So, I just got a wee taste of the festival, just the beginning.
Oh yeah. Meanwhile, I was absent from the country altogether. But
I know you were in Romania, right?
yeah, and I apologise for not being out. I was on the 4th floor of a hotel, and my internet was rubbish. So, but I think you had enough people anyway.
Yeah, we had a good number of
what I could
lovely
see.
artists.
Anyway, so let's chat. Mike's not here. Mike's doing something. He might be back by 7. We might have finished by 7, but it doesn't matter. But have you got a story for us?
Well, look, if it's a matter of 17 minutes and we need to wait until 7 to get Mike here, do you think I should go with a long one?
Oh, right. Yeah, and I've got a 2-second one I can follow it up with.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna. You start. I'm just gonna. If I disappear, I haven't gone into another room or anything. I'm getting a charger for my phone because I've only just got back. I literally walked in the house after 3.5 weeks to start the program. So it's all a bit chaotic at this end. So I haven't even gone upstairs to do the whole thing on the computer. I'm still on the mobile phone. Right. Despina, over to you.
Okay, great. Well, very glad to see you all, guys. I was called by Liz to add a little story to some wonderful Irish storytellers gig in their event. So I told them this story, and I hope you will like it, because we are all affected by the terrible thing that's going on in the Middle East right now. We have friends in Gaza, big kiss. We have friends in Israel, big kiss. I know that not everybody in Israel wants this war. I mean, who does? Whoever wants war, other than politicians. So when I'm thinking about that situation, I have this story that always pops to my mind, and I have found different versions of it. I've heard it from a German girl as a folktale. I've read it in literature by Tolstoy, and the same thing I found in an audio recording of another version from Argentina, supposedly in the Pampas. There are great big fields there. So it appears that it is a global story with lots of different variations, which means that it is a very human one. So it goes like this. A long time ago, a shepherd had taken the sheep up the hill and was resting underneath the big shadow of a tree, waiting for the sheep to graze. And as he was looking around him in the same spot he would see every day, for a long, long time, he saw from the distance a figure approaching from the path. Now that was weird. At that time of day, there was nobody else up on the hill other than himself and the sheep. And as this figure approached, he could see that it was a person dressed in very fine garments, very elaborate. Now, when that man came near, he talked to the shepherd. What a brilliant morning this is. Yeah. Good morning, said the shepherd. How are you today? Are you admiring the nature around you? Nah, I'm just bored. Well, that man, the visitor, he looked around him and he could see that the sun was dawning in the horizon and there were beautiful pinks and purples and reds and goldish browns spreading in the dark sky. And he could smell the grass growing from underneath his feet where he had crushed it to walk. And he could see the morning dew at the tips of the grass. And he said, man, how can you say you're bored? Do you not like nature? Don't you like the land? And the shepherd says, yeah, it's okay. It's just that, I'm grazing somebody else's sheep now. If this land were my own, that would be a whole different matter. Well, won't you look at that, said the visitor. You see, I am to offer you a wager. Walk with me up the hill. Up the hill they went, both of them. And he said, I will reveal to you now that I am the king, the owner of this land. Yeah, right, said the shepherd. And I'm the Pope. No, man, I am the king, he said. And he showed him his hand, and on his finger there was a big signet ring. Your Majesty, said the shepherd, please forgive me, I didn't know. It is all right, said the king. Now look, what you can see below this hill, further down, everything around here, as far as your eye can reach, belongs to me. Here's my offer. You walk on your feet as far big a distance as you like, and when you believe you have enough land, you walk back to me, and this land will be yours. Mine, my lord? Yours by royal decree. Well, I should get going now. Wait, there is one condition. You must be back by the time the sun sets. If you're back by the time the sun sets, everything you will have covered by foot will belong to you. I'm on my way, said the shepherd, and off he was down the cliff. And he just looked around him at this land, just at the other side of that hill. And well, you know how the saying goes, the grass on the other side was so much greener, like the wall behind me, like the one behind Keith with the mushrooms growing, like that exactly, Keith. So the man looked at this glorious piece of land and he said, oh man, if I bring my sheep here to graze, they will grow big and they will have lots of fur and I will become rich. I must start working now. And he started working around a great big piece of land, and the sun was moving up to noon when the man stopped working, because now he was happy. He had walked all this time, all these hours around a huge piece of land, which was splendid. And the man stopped and looked, and there, beside his, almost his piece of land now, was the river, the stream passing by. And he thought, what about water? What if that man, that king, what if he makes the same offer to somebody else and they come and they walk around the river? Then I will have no water. I need water. I need water for my field. I need water to water my animals. I must get a piece of that river. He said, and he started walking until he found a narrow passage to walk around. And when he passed, to walk across, when he passed across and reached the other side, the other bank of the river, he started walking backwards so as to make sure that this piece of river passing through his land would be his. And the sun was moving on the horizon as the man made it, but now that river, that stream, it was fast flowing and he could see no narrow passage, nor bridge, nor anything on it. So he kept walking and walking and walking for a good while until he found safe passage to the other side. And when he did, well, he was rather tired and the sun was moving up in the sky. And he thought that he had walked all these hours without having a sip of water or a bit of lunch. He had his lunch with him, so he stopped for a little while underneath a tree and admired at the land and the river, which were soon to be his. And as he was munching his lunch and sipping his water, up he gazed at the man on the hill looking down at him, and then next to him, another hill. And he thought, oh, that hill, that is a perfect place for me to build my mansion. I will build my huge house there to look after my estate and make sure that my shepherds are not lazy while they were grazing my sheep. So he started going up that hill, and the sun was always moving in the sky. By the time he had walked it down and he was ready to start climbing up the next hill, the one where the king was on top waiting. Now the sun was very close to its setting, and he could see that the colors were spreading again, only for sunset this time. Beautiful pinks and reds and browns and oranges, but this was not a nice view to him. He realized how much time had elapsed, how he had to be in a haste now. So he started racing up the hill, climbing mountains, holding rocks with his hand, not even looking for his way to find the path, just climbing upwards as steep as it came. And he could sense darkness falling around him as the sun was setting up there on the hill. The sun had not set there yet. And he could hear the king calling out to him, come on, you can do it, just a little bit more. And even though he could feel his heart pounding and he was sweating heavily and panting now, he did not give up. He just kept making his effort up the hill until finally he reached the feet of the king, because by now he had been crawling just as the sun set in the horizon. And as the final rays disappeared behind the mountain, the man left his final breath at the feet of the king. He had died from exhaustion. The king looked down and he said, I hoped this one would be different. He took out his signet ring. He got hold of a shovel and he started digging a hole. And when he had dug enough, 6 feet down, he put the body of the shepherd in there and he started shoveling the ground on top of the dead shepherd. When he was done, he stopped and the night had fallen around him, and he could see the stars in the sky, and he could still see at the last light of day the land spreading on both sides of the hill. And he thought, we men, we believe we own the land, but in reality, it is the land that owns us. And this 6 feet of land is exactly how much land a man needs. Thank you.
Very good this evening. Excellent. Really nice.
Please
Let,
take the
let,
story
let,
and
that be,
share it.
let that be a lesson for those people with ambition is a terrible thing. That's right. Well, I better tell a story. It's a chance meeting I had at a folk festival in Texas some years ago, Kerrville Folk Festival. It's up in the hill country, and it's run by volunteers. A third of the volunteers are performers, and Gail Ross does the storytelling there. So I had to just work, and so I worked in the kitchen. I did breakfast shift because it gets too hot. The breakfast shift, you start 5 o'clock in the morning, but it means you're not working in the height of the Texas heat. So by 11 o'clock, you finished and you take a bit of a sleep. You get 3 meals a day and 6 pints of beer, so that's all right. So I was in the and it was like everything else. You go for crew food and later. So I went to the crew food for supper, and there was this woman, Dee Dee, who was a Native American woman. She was great. She's very cynical. She'd sort of roll around in a wheelchair around this sort of ranch where the folk festival was, and she'd sort of send me for a dinner. So John, go get me some supper. So I go and get her some supper, and she said, John, and everyone was sort of selling dream catchers and sort of dodgy fake Native American stuff. And she goes, mighty purty. Ain't anything to do with my culture, but they're mighty purty. And then she said, so she'd been in her time, she'd been a big executive in Houston, and and she used to just walk into the boardroom with the feathers in her hair just to annoy everybody. And one day they were trying to buy. They were building the interstate around Houston, which required buying a chunk of railway and to close it down and use the land. And they said, Dee Dee, can you do this? Can you make the deal? Can you sort it out? She said, yeah, I'll I don't need any help. I do it by myself. I need to start my own company, PFPBT, I'll call it. And if I say I need $6 million, you just give me $6 million, no question asked. Well, on Monday, everything is done and dusted. And Dee Dee's done all the deals. There's a big celebration going on. And the head of Union Pacific Railways comes up and said, great job, Dee Dee. Great job. But tell me, what does PFPBT stand for? He said, pale face payback time. Have you any idea how satisfying it is for an Indian to close a railway? I think the last time I told that was at Taffy's thing down at Halls Manor. That was anyway. So, well, Mike said he might not get here. He might not. But I'll give the parish notices anyway now, and stretch it out for a couple of minutes. Well, we've done an hour. It's been a respectable innings, and so what we got coming up Tuesday. Of course, we've got young international tellers, 5 o'clock UK time, and Irish time and Moroccan time. And Thursday, we've got a special, 6 o'clock in the evening. We've got David Heathfield, with Palestinian friend, whose name I haven't got in front of me, doing because I have walked in without any of my stuff and I'm just still sitting there in my coat.
John, I think it might be Hanin Khalid.
Yeah, that's right. And they're doing a benefit for medical aid for Palestine. So they put the whole program together. So I'm doing no more than introduce it. Waleed, thank you very much. Waleed's coming in on his day off to sort that out, or he's changed his day off. So and thank you, Umayma, for allowing that to happen. And slap on the wrist, John, for not telling anyone in advance, because I thought Waleed's day off is Wednesday, but then I never was the best administrator in the world. How I got to be a director of a festival, I haven't the faintest idea, and how we've managed to keep this website going for 2 years. If it wasn't for you lot, we wouldn't have. Well, no, it's 3. No, it's the best part of 4 years now, isn't it?
Excuse me, which means that you are a brilliant artistic director.
Yeah, yeah. I've got a hands-off. I've got a hands-off policy. You know, like this is going to happen now. Can you lot just make it? And occasionally it's the spinner. I'm on the wrong side of the planet. Can you be me? Which I thank you all for. So and so that's Thursday done. Friday, stories for children. Amir Burke from Ireland, the Druid, which I'm looking forward to. That's a treat. And then I think the following Friday we've got Maria Gillan. So we've got a kind of Irish for 2 Fridays coming up, which I think will be fantastic. When the next worldwide story round is, Mike and I might have actually worked this out, but I haven't got my diary in front of me. I was hoping that I'd have all that sorted out before you all left. So Keith, the usual instructions: keep an eye on the schedule, and I will put it up on the Facebook pages and everything else. But I think it's probably going to be, well, it'll be sometime in December. We'll do another one, and we'll keep it monthly for a while.
We lost John, have we?
Looks like it, yeah. He said December, but I mean, there's a whole month of November, isn't there, to come?
All
Yeah.
right. But he did say monthly, so he must have meant November 1st.
Yeah.
I apologize profusely. I wrote July the other day for last Fridays or something. So all that, yeah. So I can't even get a video camera up. There we go. So let us assume that there's going to be one in December, but before that there'll be one in November. I wasn't lying. There will be one in December. There will be one before that. You just have to look at things, sort of go backwards, you know. We take a contrary view of life. So, right. Tony, are you sufficiently confused?
This is my first visit to the World Story Cafe, John. So I'm totally confused. Yes, but
Well,
I'll get through it.
Now, what you do is I mean, I always put everything up on the day or the day before on the Facebook site, the World Storytelling Community.
Yeah.
Then on the website itself, I usually give Waleed a schedule, and actually I've managed to do it in advance. If I remember, I give him a schedule for the next 3 or 4 programs. So you keep an eye on that. But normally on Worldwide Story Round, we know what's happening. Mike and I have got together and worked out the next few months, which we might have done already, but because I've been away for 3.5 weeks and away from the diary that's got all that written down in, I haven't the faintest idea when these are.
Well, I was aware of what's happened tonight, so I told Tony. So
I rely on Keith to keep me up to date with this, John. Yeah.
Well, as long as you've got someone more competent than me to look after you in those respects. So Keith, despite you having a similar beard, you've got the correct organisational skills. So if you can let Tony know,
I will do.
Because
yeah.
Braille doesn't work very well on the screen. Why don't these scientists just work out of Braille's? They can do everything else on virtual reality, so they should be able to work out a Braille screen by now.
That's interesting. I've got John. I was Rona Barber's group the other week, and I was telling about myself, and I've got 1 or 2 amusing anecdotes about my sight or lack of it over the years of losing it, and I'll tell you someday about the Braille glamour photography.
Oh wow!
I'll leave you with that.
You're going to leave us hanging, aren't you? You're not going to tell us till the next time you're on. Right? Can you all remember that whatever else he tells, but he has to tell us about the Braille glamour photography?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's always good to leave an audience wanting more.
We'll wait and see. Yeah.
Well, meanwhile, thanks everyone for coming on, keeping it rolling. It's always difficult when we're starting something again.
Thank you, John.
You've done a grand job, everyone.
Thoroughly enjoyed it.
And next time Mike will be with us, so it'll be far more organised. So there's but thank you, Despina. Thank you, Waleed, for flying the magic carpet as always. And we'll see you. Tuesday, we always welcome. I mean, we have young tellers, but we always welcome adults coming in to support them because it gives them a live audience. Sometimes we have 2 or 3, sometimes we have 1, sometimes we talk about each other till Nigeria joins us.
Right.
Because it's difficult enough to get children to turn up in time, the best of times, let alone when you're dealing across time zones.
Yeah.
So, and they will do things like their school exams, like they're important, as opposed to storytelling. So they want careers and things like that, as well as being phenomenally famous artists. But they want things that make money as well. So we have some great young tellers on.
Yeah. Well, thanks, John. I'm going to leave you now because I'm going to have my supper now. So thanks, everyone. And I'll
thank you, Tony. I was only rattling on in case Mike turned up. I finished. It's obviously he's not going to make it, so I'll stop rabbiting. And
I'm going to have mine just now as well. Not with Tony, but
no.
We're having it at the same time.
That would be difficult.
That would be interesting.
That would be geographically challenging.
Yeah,
it would be.
And I don't know what they eat in Lincolnshire besides sausages, but so which is my favourite sausage, by the way, Keith. A good Lincolnshire sausage.
Oh, right. Well,
anyway, bye, folks.
He's probably a vegetarian. So, is there a veggie Lincolnshire sausage?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, see you all.
Bye.
Bye.
See you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.